We now turn to Somnath, not just a temple, not just a site where history, faith, politics and power met, but it is a site that is a symbol of India's cultural renaissance, its revival. Prime Minister Modi is in Somnath for the Swabiman Parv, marking 1,000 years since the first recorded attack on the shrine and 75 years since its post-independence reconstruction.
Right, Gauri, in fact, Prime Minister will be taking part in the Shaurya Yatra today. That will also see 108 horses. He will be addressing gatherings. He will be participating in several events, including cultural spectacles, symbolic marches celebrating Shaurya and resilience of people who have sacrificed their lives for Somnath. And he will speak to the nation through Somnath. Remember, in 2018, when he inaugurated the Statue of Unity, he said that had it not been the sacrifices of certain people, Indians would have had to procure visas to go to Somnath. Somnath, like you rightly pointed out, is one of those sacred Jyotirlings of this country and also an Agni Tirth. So very sacred spot that also sees confluence. In fact, it's called the Triveni of the East, and very importantly, an important cultural symbol, and all this in the midst of different political and historical narratives that have been woven around Somnath, something that has also led to clashes in the past.
And there's been a lot of politics also that's coming in as we mark the 1,000 years since the first recorded attack. We've been saying that that wasn't the only one. There were 22 big and small other attacks that also took place. The first one happened exactly 1,000 years back when the Mahmud of Ghazni attacked what was a majestic temple, the first Jyotirling of Lord Shiva, and since then 22 others followed. But what's happening right now is also a lot of politics around it. We're going to try and touch base on that as well. But the big story, the big arc of civilization that is being marked today is not just the fact that there was an attack, the fact that it revived, it redesigned itself, it was reconstructed. And that's the story of cultural revival. In fact, Aditya Rajkol is joining us live from exactly the spot where history is being made. Aditya, how lucky are you that you are standing at the spot where history is being made? 1,000 years since the first recorded attack. It's now being marked by a lot of cultural programs, events. Take us through what you're seeing right there on ground.
Well, that's right, Gauri. This is a live broadcast, a special coverage, even as Prime Minister Narendra Modi in a few minutes from now will be arriving here at the event. He would be holding special prayers. And in fact, we are showing you a glimpse of the cultural revival that is taking shape here in Somnath. Let's try and show you what's happening here. If we can walk, if the video journalist can walk and show you this entire area, there are massive security arrangements that have been made, but there are also hundreds of people. We have to move to a different location, so I'll ask you to wait a little so that we can give you a little glimpse of what's happening, because the SPGs coming in and the Prime Minister would be arriving in a few minutes from now. Rolling it back to you, and I can join in 2 minutes.
You will join us, and then we're going to get an update as far as how things are looking right now on ground. There's a lot lined up. Programs, the Shaurya Yatra that Vasudha and I are talking about, 108 horses that will mark the valor, the courage of all those who fought for the glory, the reconstruction of divinity, of temple that we are talking about today.
And Gauri, most interestingly, this is also the 75th anniversary of the post-independence reopening of Somnath Temple, which is what the Prime Minister has often spoken about. He said recently that the former Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, was not really enthused at the reopening of Somnath Temple, something that Sardar Patel promised in 1947. He did not live to see the grand reconstruction of the temple. But remember that this has been a dream of several Congress leaders as well, including K.M. Munshi and Sardar Patel. And the Prime Minister has said that this is one temple that represents the indomitable spirit of India, also Hindu pride, and it talks about the resilience of Hindu civilization in the face of odds, in the face of several odds, multiple conflicts, especially from Muslim invaders, from Islamist invaders who wanted to not just loot the country, but also rob its pride and civilizational glory.
Indeed. And we're going to try and connect with Aditya in just a bit, as Vasudha was talking about the history, the recent history of the temple with Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel ensuring that this temple was constructed, even though the BJP has said that Pandit Nehru, India's first Prime Minister, was against the reconstruction of the temple, saying that that shouldn't be done. Mahatma Gandhi, the father of nation, had said that if it has to be done, it should be done on public funding, not state funding. And that's how it happened. Not a single penny was given by the state exchequer. Every penny was crowdsourced, and that is when the big grand reconstruction followed. And India's first president, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, was there at the consecration ceremony that marked the 75 years back, that marked the reconstruction of the temple. We're going to have Dr. Savi Singh, who's a spiritual coach, with us in the studio. We have Dr. Pradeep Chakravarti, who's a historian and author, with us on the broadcast. Rashmi Sawant, who's the author of Ram Janmabhoomi, the inspiration for Hindu resurgence. Professor Hindol Sen Gupta, historian, and of course our very own Aditya as well, who's, as I said, lucky enough to see history being made firsthand. And Aditya, if I can come back to you first, do you have now a stable spot, if you can sort of take us through how things are looking on ground?
Well, that's right, Gauri. We are joining you live here on NDTV Sunday morning for the Somnath Swabiman Parv. We saw the first day yesterday, but Prime Minister gave a glimpse of the mantra ucharan, the Omkar mantra ucharan that happened historically here inside the Somnath Temple, but also the drone show that symbolically represented the victory of faith, the victory of goodwill against evil. Remember, India is marking 1,000 years of the Somnath Temple's attack by Muhammad of Ghazni, and there have been several attacks ever since. But still, there has been resilience, there's been courage, there has been endurance, and there has been, of course, goodwill without any hatred in this entire exercise. And today, Prime Minister, in a few minutes from now, will be coming here again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be laying a wreath and flowers at the Sardar Sankalp Sthal, which is at the premises of the Somnath Temple. And thereafter, after marking respect for Sardar Patel, the hero who was responsible for the reconstruction of the Somnath Temple from 1947 to 1951. And thereafter, of course, Rajendra Prasad was the one who inaugurated the Somnath Temple. After the initial marking of respect at Sardar Sankalp Sthal, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be heading towards a special Yatra that will also have 108 horses. And this is marking, of course, the celebration that is happening here on Indian civilization, on the Hindu civilization. And thereafter, there will be special prayers, because remember, the Somnath Temple is part of the 12 Jyotirlings of India. It is in fact considered the first Jyotirling, which is very, very significant. And that's why priests from all Jyotirlings in India are converging here at the Somnath Temple, and special prayers will be offered. And finally, the final leg is around 11 a.m. roughly, where Prime Minister, along with many others, would be addressing a special event to mark the 1,000 years of the destruction, but also the revival of the Somnath Temple. So just to give you a glimpse of where I'm standing, this is the main venue. This is the main gate of the Somnath Temple. And of course, Prime Minister would be arriving in a few minutes from now. There's massive security arrangements, SPG and others, Gujarat police being deployed. There are thousands and thousands of people who have converged here from all across Gujarat, from all across India, to get a glimpse of not just the Prime Minister, but to be a part of this cultural revival, or to be a part of this continuity of civilization and goodwill here at Somnath. Because remember, it's not merely about a Hindu temple. It's about Indian civilization. It's about the powerful endurance that it has had, even though there has been suffering, even though there have been challenges all through. And that's what Prime Minister is likely to speak on, that there have been challenges before, there are challenges now. We had the NSA, Ajit Doval, also speaking yesterday about the challenges and how Indian temples, Hindu temples, were destroyed since centuries. But there was a revival. Even today there is a revival. I remember there are a lot of stones, a lot of sculptures, ancient sculptures that were looted from India. But now they are coming back from US, from Australia, from Europe, and many such other countries. So we're just awaiting that moment, Gauri, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be arriving.
108 horses, because Prime Minister Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah have always referred to Somnath as Prabhas Pathan. It's something that also figures in our scriptures and Puranas, something that's associated with Lord Krishna as well. Help us understand the significance and the symbolism of using 108 horses today as part of the Shaurya Yatra, remembering those people who have laid their lives for this temple.
Well, be it Ahilya Holkar or be it, several other significant historical figures who have been part of the cultural revival of Somnath. So the first event on this Sunday at the Swabiman Parv of Somnath will be to pay homage to all those significant historical figures who have been part and have sacrificed their life to keep Somnath safe. So that's why Prime Minister will be part of that very important Swabhiman Parv Yatra, in which 108 horses will be part of this journey. Now 108 has assumed a very significant role in the Hindu religion, in the Hindu civilization, and that's why we do the chanting of mantras also happen 108 times, and this time the beginning of these special prayers will happen with this rally of 108 horses right outside the Somnath Temple, in which Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself will participate. There will be, of course, Chief Minister of Gujarat, Bhupendra Patel, and the Deputy Chief Minister, Harsh Sanghvi, also joining them. And immediately after that, we'll see other ceremonies, but a very, very significant, powerful and special prayer ceremony inside the Somnath Temple. Inside there's been massive, flowers that have been decorated all across the temple premises. It's as bright as it could be. There is, of course, a lot of anecdotes about how Lord Krishna was involved in the creation of the Somnath as well as a wooden structure. And, there is a myth about the Ravana as well, constructing this. And finally, in the modern ages, the Somnath Temple was constructed in stone. And of course, between 1947 and 1951, that cultural revival took place for India. There's been controversy also raging between the BJP and the Congress, a massive slugfest with the BJP attacking the Congress party and saying
We're going to
that
come to the politics
Nehru,
of it in just a bit. We're going to come to the politics of it in just a bit. We're going to keep coming back to you. But to our viewers, the reason why Somnath Temple is so revered, and Vasudha, this is what even Aditya was saying, why is it that there's a reference of Krishna? Why is there that there's a reference of Ravan? The fact that it has actually survived all the 4 yugs of Hinduism, and that's the reason why it is the most revered holy site for Hindus, the first Jyotirling. But I want to start now with our guests as well. And Hindu, let me start with you there, that the significance of today, the milestone that is being marked today, the cultural renaissance that many are talking about. How do you read this day today?
Thank you very much for having me on this show. I must emphasize here that it is true that Somnath is uniquely historical. It is also true that Somnath has a unique position in our sacred text. But you cannot tell the story of Somnath adequately unless you really take into consideration the number of attacks that happened. Please remember, this temple was once perhaps one of the wealthiest religious shrines in the entire world. Attack after attack, wave after wave of attack happened on this temple. Caravanfuls of jewels, gold, silver, rubies, diamonds were taken away from this temple. And yet so much was the treasure of Somnath, so wealthy and so prosperous was Somnath, that it almost seemed that it would never come to an end, which is why it was attacked again and again. Finally, it is said that even the heavy golden doors of Somnath were taken away. This is the extent of the attack that happened on Somnath. We must never forget that it is because India was weak at that point that we could not protect the Somnath. I heard Mr. Ajit Doval's comments with great care yesterday.
Right.
He has said these things before also, and I completely agree. We keep talking about Gandhi always in our country, and Gandhiji is very, very important, but we must also remember the other lessons from Somnath. And I'm reminded of Ramdhari Singh Dinkar, who famously said that unless there is power behind compassion, unless there is force behind compassion, that compassion has no real meaning.
Absolutely, Hindu. I think that is a very important point, Professor Sengupta. Let me take this to Rashmi Samant. Rashmi, we've talked about historical narratives so often, but history is a mirror to our past. It can't just be a clash of narratives. When Romila Thapar says that the trauma, the Hindu trauma that K. Munshi talks about is just, it's just a colonial construct versus K.M. Munshi, who says that Hindus were completely distraught with the kind of attacks on Somnath's temple. How does a modern Indian look at Somnath now? How should he or she look at the temple now?
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I think Somnath Temple in itself is a testament to civilizational continuity, and that is how a modern day Hindu today should look at it. It's not just about the mere, survival of a building, but it's about the survival of the idea behind it. Somnath is the ultimate, case study for what historians call historical persistence, the unbroken thread. Despite being raised multiple times, the essence, what we'd like to call prana, of Somnath never left the collective consciousness of people, and that's the reason why it was rebuilt over and over. And it tells about humanity's spirit to rejuvenate, to persist, and to continue, especially when there's so much essence in the core idea of that civilization. See, the Somnath, it demonstrates that Indian civilization does not merely restore its past; it also rejuvenates it. If you look at Somnath, it's not just a point of spirituality per se. I think today, more so than ever, the political debates behind it, different people from different avenues commenting on it, makes it so much more special because we need to know that there are so many more special aspects of Somnath. There's something called the thumb or the arrow pillar at Somnath, and it signifies India's ancient geographical and scientific understanding that there's no significant landmass between Somnath and the South Pole about seafaring capabilities and so on and so forth. So I think for a 21st century Hindu looking forward as an economy that's booming and that's leading out there, it's proof of what our ancestors were capable of and what we are capable of in terms of knowledge creation, showing path, and that sense of civilizational continuity which has enabled us to rejuvenate despite challenges.
Right.
And I think that's the mindset, that's the positive, that's the mindset with which our ancestors consecrated it. That's the mindset with which it persisted through the four yugas. And that's the sort of mindset that we need to have moving forward, especially during turbulent times that 2026 is proving up to be. And I think that's the sense of survival and continuity that every Hindu, every Bharatiya must imbibe. And Somnath is just a living proof of that.
Indeed. And, Dr. Pradeep Chakravarti, let me bring you in here. Many are actually saying that why go back 1,000 years in time? Why talk about invasion? But, the fact is that unless you celebrate your history, unless you understand your history, how do you develop perspective? That's the most important thing. Dr. Pradeep Chakravarti.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Absolutely,
Yes,
yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. So I want to start by answering an earlier question on 100. I want to start by answering an earlier question on 108. 108 is a very, very precious number for us. If you compare the distance from the Earth to the Sun, the distance from the Earth to the Moon, and the circumference of the Earth, you'll find the proportions match to 108. So it was a code word for us in terms of 108, which connected the Moon, the Sun, and the Earth together, which is why in the Hindu culture, 108 is very important. I think today's date is also very interesting because Ghazni attacked Somnath Fort on the 6th of Jan in 1026. And on the 8th of Jan, about 50,000 people, Indians died fighting to protect the temple. So today's date is also quite close to that 8 January 1026. So it's a very, very interesting number. So if you look at what they have done, Somnath itself, the place is very important. I'm glad you put the word Prabhas Patan, because the moon and the pole star are the most important stars for navigation in the sea. And Prabhas Patan was one of India's greatest ports in ancient India. So the wealth of Somnath came really from the port and from the Arab traders who used the fort, the Phoenicians. In fact, we have Scythians, we have other Greek kings who are also worshippers of Shiva in that region. So Shiva as an idol is far older than the Rig Veda itself, which is the oldest text for Vedic Hinduism. And we have the Agamantins who are worshippers of Shiva in all the tribal different forms. And today I would think
except for places in Orissa and Madhya Pradesh and a little bit in Kerala, we don't really see that very, very ancient, wild form of worshipping Shiva. And over a period of time, when Shiva worship also started including the Vedic hymns inside, there were two groups of Shaivites, and we're talking about 2,000, 2,500 years ago. We had the Agamantins who were worshipping Shiva in the very old prehistoric traditions. We also had the Vedantins who were worshipping Shiva in the Vedic ways. The tribal, prehistory, pre-Vedic traditions of Shaivism never dried out, never disappeared.
Right.
One of them metamorphosized into the Kapalikas, the Kalamukas and the Lakulishas. And the Pashupatas were very, very important in that region. So that site itself would have been at least more than 2,000 years ago. I think the first temple we know was destroyed and reconstructed in about 640, 69. But there was the space itself was sacred. And I think this master stroke of using Shiva as a way to bring India together is a very smart move, because Shiva has consistently been a pan-Indian god.
Right. Yes. Mr. Chakravarti, it's very interesting because even K.M. Munshi talks about the links between Shiva, who's worshipped in Somnath, to Pashupati, who was worshipped in earlier times. So he says that the shrine in Somnath is older than creation itself. Hindol Sengupta, coming to the politics of it, I find it extremely interesting that not just Sardar Patel, even K.M. Munshi, or even, our N.V. Gadgil, somebody who also, he was the urban development minister during Jawaharlal Nehru's time, he also said that it is important to reconstruct Somnath's temple. So clearly there were multiple voices even in the Congress at that point, while Nehru, it's believed, wanted to completely emphasize on constitutional secularism. How do you see the politics that played out in 1951 and the fact that Sardar Patel pushed for this, and finally this temple was built on public funds, not on government funds, but it was reconstructed? Yes.
I think it's important to remind everyone once again what really happened. When Sardar Patel went and saw Somnath, he realized that Somnath was in a dilapidated state, and he realized that this was a great insult to the civilization of India, because Somnath represents the sense of unbroken continuity which every other civilization has lost. Even the Chinese destroyed, but India upheld despite all the invasions, all the attacks. And Sardar Patel realized that he would perhaps not be able to finish this work during his lifetime because he was already very unwell. So he handed over the work and gave clear instructions to K.M. Munshi that he should finish this work even if Sardar Patel passes away. After Sardar Patel's death, K.M. Munshi began in earnest the work of completing Somnath. He went from door to door, in a sense, collecting funds, private funds for the reconstruction and the rehab. And the Prime Minister was not very happy that K.M. Munshi was so engaged in this rebuilding of Somnath project. K.M. Munshi replied in an equally long letter to the Prime Minister, arguing that it was a job that Sardar Patel had given him. And much more than that, he said that if the whole country at independence was happy to take up many more projects, countless projects around the country, to ignore and neglect Somnath would be a great civilizational error. And he could never, leave Somnath to its fate, so to speak, because he believed too, quite like Sardar Patel, that this was a civilizational task and he would have to fulfill it. By the way, I have to remind your viewers that it is said that even Rajendra Prasad, when he wanted to go for the inauguration of Somnath, Pandit Nehru tried to stop him, but the first president still went and inaugurated. Even though it is said that AIR actually blocked his speech.
Hindol, I'm going to come back to that in some aspects about the first cabinet meeting and what really happened. But first, viewers who are tuning in right now, in Somnath, a powerful visual of Prime Minister Modi at the temple precincts, Trishul raised high as waves of Har Har Mahadev roared through the crowd. Those are some of the defining images that we are putting out for you, where Prime Minister raised the Trishul at Somnath. Under the ancient temple spires, the Prime Minister joined in deep devotion, chanting Omkar with priests and devotees alike, offering prayers that echo through Somnath as part of the Swabiman Parv. One of the night's key moments, over 3,000 drones light up the Somnath sky, forming a towering shivling and Om before shifting into planets and stars as the Prime Minister watched under the aerial display unfold over the Arabian Sea. To end the night, the skies erupted in color, fireworks shimmering over Somnath's sacred shore, a vibrant tribute to 1,000 years of unbroken faith and resilience.
We also have Acharya Savi Singh with us. Ma'am, help us understand what is your understanding of the significance of Somnath and the fact that it's being celebrated like this, and the fact that 1,000 years of its first recorded attack is also in some ways etched in public memory and people are commemorating this occasion.
Absolutely. Firstly, thank you for having me on the show today and making me a part of this historic moment. It's yet again going to go down into the history. And Somnath is one site, it's one pilgrimage which is mostly known for its valor, for its resistance, for its persistence. And not only is it the first Jyotirling amongst the 12 Jyotirlings, but it is one of the most sacred sites. In Hindi, we call it the Taj of the Tirth, which means that it is the crown. It is the most precious crown amongst all the pilgrimages that there are. So if we see it from that aspect, now what is happening at the Somnath today, 1,000 years of resistance, 1,000 years of valor is being celebrated, and likely, rightly how one of my fellow panelists already said and quoted that what happened in the 1026 AD on the 8th of January, 72 hours of Omkareshwar, the mantra chant, started on the 8th of January until today, which is the 11th of January. And because I am an astrologer, it also becomes important to understand why today is an important day when we are celebrating and when we are, bringing this entire perspective and bringing this entire celebration to an end today, if we can say so, after the 4 day of celebration. Yes. Because today there is a Ashtami Yukta Navami Tithi. Now what this Tithi basically symbolizes in astrology, it means that this is a completion of the Shiva and the Shakti coming together. And that is why this moment becomes even more fruitful, even more precious. Also Somnath, see, it was eroded by the Persians, it was eroded by the Mughals, then followed by the British, 17 to 20 attacks back to back. But what remains as the most important site in the history of India is why it is known as the epic of resistance. It is known as an epic of persistence, which is why it holds a very sacred space in the hearts of the Hindus.
It indeed does. And I'm going to go back to Aditya Rajkal, my colleague who's on ground, taking us through this historic milestone that we are talking about in detail. I think it's just about half an hour to go before the Prime Minister comes in, and then of course some of the other planned programs get underway. Aditya, walk us through what's lined up, what's happening on ground.
Well, yes, Gauri and Vasudha, it's a jam-packed day here. There are thousands of people who have converged to Somnath to witness this historic occasion where Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself will be leading the special prayers. But before that, we'll have the salutation to the Sardar Sankalp Sthal, to the Sardar who saved, this particular important legacy, but also an important symbol of Indian civilization, of Hindu Renaissance in several ways. Again, Prime Minister would be arriving somewhere around 10 a.m. He will be paying respects to the Sardar, and thereafter he will be participating in that important Yatra along with 108 horses. And finally, the special prayers will be led here by the Prime Minister at the first of the 12 Jyotirlings of India. Thereafter, for the benefit of our viewers, we can say that Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be addressing not just people here, but people all across India and all across the world who are devotees of Lord Shiva, who are devotees of Somnath, and are very, very carefully watching this historic occasion where India with pride, with India with much significance is noticing this cultural revival, this civilizational continuity right behind me at the historic Somnath Temple. I in fact got the opportunity, as you said, I'm very lucky. Usually on a given day I cover foreign affairs and national security, but I got an opportunity to be here to witness history, and it's a surreal experience really. I hope our producers can play out for you my walkthrough that I did last night from inside the temple. NDTV was the only channel that
all of those reports have been played and those visuals have been on air through last evening and today morning, telling our viewers, taking them through what is a historic milestone. And Aditya, in about 30 minutes is when the Prime Minister's programs will come in, and we're going to keep coming back to you. And, Vasudha, before we get in some of the other guests, what we're talking about today with, the politics coming in, there's so much of BJP versus Congress that we are seeing right now, essentially overshadowing what is really an embodiment of both faith as well as revival. And I think that is what is getting sidelined in the midst of this war of words that one is seeing, unfortunately.
Well, Gauri, I studied in Gujarat, and Somnath has always been very special for us. And we've always known Somnath as Prabhas Patan because, like Mr. Chakravarti also pointed out, it's one of the oldest seaports of the country, and it's a place that's associated with moon god, it's associated with Krishna, because it's believed that Lord Krishna also left his body, in a place that was very close to Somnath. And the old Dwarka is also considered very close to present-day Somnath. So several stories of history, mythology connected, associated with Somnath. But you rightly pointed out the fact that, Somnath also gained a lot of resurgence with Ayodhya's Bhumi Pujan that happened during COVID. And that's when we started talking a lot about how similar things happened 75 years ago. Mr. Chakravarti, help us understand the various myths and stories and, these beautiful associations that Somnath has with our scriptures, with our gods. What are the stories that we as modern day Indians need to know?
So I think the story that we need to know in India today is we need to be a united country. While we're talking about all the people who helped, we should definitely remember the Jamshab of Navanagar, who, when the reconstruction came up, so by the way, the total cost of building this in 1947 was 24,92,000 rupees. And out of that, 1,101 rupees was given by the Navnagar Jam Sahib. And the people in Baroda and many of the other local principalities, they've been consistently helping this revival over a period of time. So we need to pay thanks to them. The other story that we should not forget was both when Ghazni destroyed the temple and when Khilji destroyed the temple, there were two Indians who supported them. Anandapala, who was then the ruler of the Shahi Empire, which stretched between Afghanistan, Punjab and Kashmir today, he actually helped Ghazni, and then the return that he got from Ghazni for helping him in the Turkish war was Ghazni came and invaded his own country, and that's when the big sack of Somnath happened. Again, when Khilji came in, there was one of the ministers of the king at that time called Madhav, and he was the one who actually led the army. And so I think what the government is doing today is to try and make Shiva a uniting force rather than a dividing force. And I am a little surprised that a lot of people are talking about the government getting involved in this, because traditionally every king has been involved in the religion as well. And it sounds very odd because in any way, at least in my state, the government is already controlling all the temples, and we do a lot of work for the temples. So in India, I think we are so spiritually connected that it's impossible for a government to be truly secular in the modern sense of the term. So while we are looking at the people who are coming together because of Somnath, we should also remember that a divided house cannot stand by itself. And these two biggest destructions happened not just because of the Ghazni or Khilji, but also because of Indians and Hindus who supported them. So I think that's a reminder for us. But coming back to the stories, I'm more a historian, so I'm going to look at how Prabhas Patan, because it was a port, was able to attract a lot of money. And every king who ruled that region, they actually continued to rebuild and renovate the temple. And this is not at all surprising, because in the Indian tradition, Kshetra, or the place which is more sacred, not so much the building, because the building is connected with Kala, which is time, which is not linear in the Indian tradition like we look at it today. It's always cyclical. So this place is sacred. Any ruler who has come to that region has given back to that space by doing something for that temple there.
Mm-hmm. In fact, that's an important point you mentioned about the role of state. And Hindol, let me bring you in there, which is that a lot of people are saying that something like this, a moment like this today, actually challenges the secularism of India. Even as, many are wondering that how can secularism, or Indian Muslims for that matter, be so fragile that a moment like this, where a millennium-old temple is being celebrated, which is a story of revival and renaissance, actually becomes a challenge to Indian secularism?
Number one, I want to say that this assertion that supposedly Hindus assisted in the destruction of Somnath is highly, highly overstated and overrated. This is very, very tenuous. That's number one. Number two, absolutely, I think this entire idea that the revival of Somnath will collapse our secularism is absolutely incorrect. It is indeed true that for many of these civilizational emblems, many communities, of course, the Hindus taking a lead in all of this naturally, but other communities traditionally have contributed. We've had a long history of this, and this is nothing new. To say that this somehow impacts our secularism is absolutely wrong. I think even today, there are communities in India who are helping each other in their secret spaces and the upkeep of their secret spaces. So this is a whole traditional thing of Indian history. This is nothing to be surprised about. But the main thing for us to remember genuinely, which today is again extremely important, is that Somnath fell again and again because India failed to defend its sovereign boundaries. And today, once again, we face very significant national security challenges. And I think the repeated invasion of Somnath really teaches us a vast lesson and a very critical lesson of how to maintain and the importance of maintaining our civilizational attributes and our sovereign boundaries. That's a very, very critical lesson. And indeed, I want to hold up the example of President Rajendra Prasad, who I was just talking about last time I spoke in this program, that even though Pandit Nehru suggested to him that he should not go for the inauguration of the Somnath Temple, in fact, the first president did go. Yes. And he also wrote back saying that Somnath belonged to every Indian. It was a symbol of the resurgence of India. It was a symbol of what India wanted to upkeep in its civilization. And it was very important for him to go and maintain this. So I think all of these lessons are as critical today.
These are echoes from the past which have an impact even today. Rashmi Samant, would you agree with Hindol on that? And also I want to ask you, there are Muslim chroniclers that even Ramila Thapar quotes, including Abu Fazal, and she says that, she goes on to say that a lot of them could have been exaggerated. And this image of Muhammad Ghazni as an iconoclast, as somebody who destroyed idols, something that we all know, that's also something that a section of historians have said is just an exaggeration by people who wrote history at that time, because local accounts don't really talk about the same. She goes on to say that there was also land that was given to mosques, which means that there was some sense of renegotiation of existence that was happening then. We have heard all of this, but in the context of Somnath, how would you explain this?
Well, I think if you look at periodic texts coming from that period, you can see that there's a consistency of destruction of idols which happened across the country. So I think it is very, it's very immature to just conclude that there was, no damage to the extent that it's being told. I think the rejuvenation itself is living proof of the very fact that there was destruction, because Indian artistry is known to survive millennium. So why wouldn't there be the same, temple or structure standing? The very reason is that it was destroyed. Apart from that, I would like to highlight about the, historical foundation. It was not just that it was a place of worship. It was very important for these, invaders to destroy temples, because temples also acted as economic hubs. So to break the backbone of any country and to be able to control it, it was essential for them to destroy the sort of economic hub, the temple economy that came with it. Temples like Somnath, Tanjavur, Tirupati, they acted as central banks, providing credit to local guilds, funding irrigation projects, managing vast tracts of land, even, giving out loans to kings during war period. So,
that's a very important point, Gauri, that Rashmi is making, that there was an incentive to invaders also to attack temples and completely destroy them, because they were also...
Temple economy was
centers
attacked.
Of influence. I think that's a very important point. But Somnath in Gujarat is also one of Hinduism's holiest sites, like Gauri has been pointing out. It is one of the oldest, it's in fact the oldest Jyotirling of Lord Shiva. This year, the Somnath Swabiman Parv marks 1,000 years since the first recorded attack on the Somnath temple, and also 75 years since its modern reconstruction. Our report looks at the temple's unique cultural significance and a celebration that's rooted in history, faith, and resilience.
The Somnath Temple stands as a powerful symbol of faith and India's pride. Historical records note multiple attacks on the temple, first in 1026 by Mahmud Ghazni, and then again in 1297, 1394, and during the early 18th century under Mughal ruler Aurangzeb's orders. Each phase saw the temple being dismantled and rebuilt, reflecting both India's turbulent past and Somnath's enduring resilience. On Sunday, Prime Minister Modi will lead Somnath Swabiman Parv, marking 1,000 years since Mahmud of Ghazni's attack. The year 2026 also marks 75 years since Somnath's modern reconstruction. The present temple structure was completed in 1951 with President Dr. Rajendra Prasad performing the installation ceremony. In a post on X, Prime Minister Modi said the attacks on Somnath over centuries failed to weaken the spiritual resolve of the people or diminish India's civilizational spirit, a sentiment that resonates strongly during the Swabiman Parv. The Prime Minister also acknowledged the contributions of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and K.M. Munshi, who led the restoration after India's independence. Traditional accounts describe earlier shrines of Somnath being built across different eras. In gold by the moon, in silver by Ravana, in wood by Lord Krishna, and finally in stone by medieval kings. These narratives underline the temple's sacred and timeless place in Hindu belief. Somnath is revered as the first of the 12 Jyotirlings of Lord Shiva. Devotees believe Lord Shiva restored the moon's waning form here, giving the temple its divine association with healing and with grace. These beliefs continue to draw millions to the temple every year. From ancient mythology to modern history, from invasions to reconstruction, the Somnath Temple embodies resilience, faith, and cultural continuity. For millions of devotees, Somnath is more than a temple. It is history, mythology, and identity woven together.
All right. Those are live visuals that are coming in right now, viewers. Prime Minister Modi is set to reach the venue any minute now. My colleague Aditya Rajkol on ground tracking this historic milestone of a day for us. Our rolling coverage continues. Those visuals are live visuals coming in right now as the next phase of the programs that will kickstart any moment now. Yesterday, we had the drone show, those majestic views, visuals that came in the evening. And today is when the Shaurya Yatra with the 108 horses will start very soon. Prime Minister will also be addressing after that Shaurya Yatra, essentially commemorating what is a historic day. And you know, Vasudha, while we are talking about the significance of today, the one thing that I think is extremely important is that revival and resilience are not just abstract concepts anymore. They are living testimony of what has happened, what can happen, and it's places like Somnath that really embody that.
Absolutely, and they are an integral part of history, but the fact that politics is also played out, and the fact that Jawaharlal Nehru believed that constitutional secularism is something that's important at a time when the nation was getting built is also something that is important, and it's also rooted in our own politics. Aditya Rajkol joins us. Aditya, what is the Prime Minister going to do? Because he is going to take part in this Shaurya Yatra. He's going to Sardar Sankalp Sthal, something that you've been reporting on.
Yes.
Help us understand. Yesterday was just massive, the drone show, the chanting of Omkar. What spectacle can we expect today?
Well, Vasudha, one thing that everybody seems to be waiting for is the address of the Prime Minister immediately after the special prayers, immediately after the Shaurya Yatra, and also the salutations to the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, who was the creator of the modern temple really between 1947 and 51. So in a few minutes from now, we will see Prime Minister Narendra Modi arriving here.
Are on air. Aditya, those visuals are on air. The Prime Minister's arrival. Go ahead.
Yes, the Prime Minister has arrived at the venue, and in a few minutes he will be participating to pay salutations, to lay a wreath at the Sardar Sankalp Sthal. So Prime Minister there finally on the second day of the entire event here in Somnath, the Somnath Swabiman Parv. Immediately after his floral tribute to the Sardar, he will be heading for the Shaurya Yatra. after the Shaurya Yatra, a very special and significant prayer inside the temple, bowing towards Lord Shiva, would be held. Priests from the 12 Jyotirlings will be converging here. Remember that Somnath is a very important pillar of the Jyotirlings, the first of the 12, and that's why it assumes a very powerful significance in the Hindu Dharma as well. So apart from that, we'll see Prime Minister also addressing finally after the special prayers. It's likely that the Prime Minister will speak about the kind of attacks that Somnath has had, but it has been the resilience of the people, resilience of several historical figures who will pay rich tributes to, who have played a significant role in construction of the temple time and again. Through centuries, at least 6 to 7 times the temple has been destroyed, destructed, plundered and looted. But each and every time it has been yet again constructed, and it has got the glory that it truly deserves. So traditionally we've seen the moon actually praying towards Lord Shiva here. That's how the creation of Somnath really happened. It was constructed in gold, in silver, in wood, and in modern age in stone. But there you have it, Prime Minister Narendra Modi being greeted as he arrives at the venue. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the second day has in fact arrived at the venue. In a few minutes, as I said, he will be paying tributes to Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Yesterday was a significant day as well, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi held special prayers. Omkar Mantra Ucharan also happened. And finally, there was a magnificent drone show paying tribute not just to the Somnath temple, but all those people who were significantly important in the cultural revival and the continuity of the Hindu civilization in this entire region. From Ghazni to several other people who have plundered Somnath and several such historical cultural sites in India. But time and again, we've seen the revival of those sites, especially in the last 11 years. We've seen significant focus of the Modi government on this cultural revival as well. So here we have it, Prime Minister Narendra Modi in his Karm Bhumi in many ways, and Janmbhumi, Gujarat, arriving on the second day of this Swabiman Parv to celebrate the Somnath temple, and he would be obviously interacting with the people, waving to them,